What happens when the glittering world of a music mogul starts to crumble under the weight of shocking accusations? The trial of Sean Diddy Combs has become one of the most explosive cases in recent memory, with allegations ranging from racketeering to sex trafficking. But what really has everyone talking is the bombshell testimonies and audio evidence emerging from the courtroom. Just this week, a newly released tape of his former lover Cassie is sending shockwaves through the media, revealing threats and explosive emotions that paint a dark picture of their relationship. And as the trial nears its conclusion, all eyes are on whether Diddy will take the stand or let his empire fall without speaking. In this video, we dive into the latest developments, the key testimonies, and the shocking details you won't hear anywhere else. Stick with us. You won't want to miss what comes next. As the trial of Sean Diddy Combs intensifies, new revelations are emerging that paint a far darker picture of the mogul's world than anyone expected. The most shocking of these came from a recently released audio tape of his ex-girlfriend Cassie, where she is heard confronting a man named Sugit over a sexually explicit video of her that had surfaced. The anger in her voice is unmistakable as she threatens him with extreme violence, saying, "I will kill you, I will hide you, and I will cut you up and put you in the dirt." While the tape itself was played in court earlier, this is the first time it has been made public, and its contents are both chilling and revealing. On one hand, the prosecution can use it to show just how far Cassie was willing to go to protect her image, suggesting fear and desperation. On the other hand, the defense will argue that this emotional outburst undermines her credibility as a victim in this case. Cassie's testimony plays a pivotal role in the prosecution's case of racketeering and sex trafficking. Her claims, combined with the emotional weight of the tape, demonstrate a consistent pattern of control, manipulation, and coercion. But what makes this even more complicated is the contrast between the soft-spoken, almost distant woman Cassie portrayed on the stand and the fiery, aggressive figure heard in the tape. This contradiction is a bombshell, one that could turn the tide of this entire trial. What happens next could completely alter the case. Stay tuned as the drama unfolds. As the trial continues to unfold, the involvement of Brendan Paul, Diddy's former assistant, has added yet another layer of complexity to the case. Brendan, who worked for Diddy from late 2022 until March 2024, has been granted immunity in exchange for his testimony. His role in Diddy's life, particularly in the alleged criminal operations, has been crucial in shedding light on the inner workings of the mogul's empire. Paul described his tasks as Diddy's assistant, everything from managing schedules to handling personal requests. However, his testimony took a more disturbing turn as he revealed his involvement in setting up the notorious Wild King Nights. These gatherings, often involving drugs, alcohol, and sexual activities, have become a focal point in the trial. Paul's role in facilitating these events and his personal involvement in purchasing drugs for Diddy, including substances like cocaine, ketamine, and ecstasy, paints a troubling picture of the lifestyle surrounding the mogul. What's even more damning is the connection between these nights and the trafficking charges. If these events were indeed tied to prostitution and sex trafficking, Paul's testimony could prove pivotal in linking Diddy to criminal activities. The defense, however, is working hard to undermine Paul's testimony, with arguments aimed at portraying him as a loyal assistant rather than a willing participant in illegal actions. The next few days in court will be critical as these revelations continue to unfold. The next phase of the trial is shaping up to be pivotal, with the defense's strategy coming into focus. As more witnesses, including Brendan Paul, testify, the defense is carefully maneuvering to chip away at the prosecution's case. They're questioning the credibility of the key witnesses, particularly focusing on whether these individuals were truly victims or simply participants in a toxic, high-profile relationship. The defense has zeroed in on Paul's testimony about the Wild King nights, attempting to downplay the severity of these events. By suggesting that these gatherings were not as criminal as they've been made out to be, they hope to weaken the prosecution's argument that these nights were a form of sex trafficking. In doing so, they're trying to cast doubt on the idea that Diddy was orchestrating any form of criminal activity. Furthermore, the defense has put a spotlight on Paul's past, arguing that his involvement in the case was more about his loyalty to Diddy rather than any illegal actions he may have participated in. The goal is to paint a picture of Paul as an innocent bystander who was simply caught up in the whirlwind of Diddy's empire. As the trial nears its conclusion, it's clear the defense is setting the stage for a dramatic clash of narratives, one that will ultimately be decided by the jury. As the trial reaches its final stages, the focus is shifting to key pieces of digital evidence that could make or break the case. Flight records, credit card transactions, and text messages are now being used to connect the dots in the prosecution's case against Diddy. These records show an intricate web of travel, money exchanges, and interactions that could be indicative of sex trafficking operations. One of the most significant pieces of evidence is the flight records, which show that individuals involved in the alleged Wild King nights were being transported to various locations, including hotels and private residences in Los Angeles and Miami. These travel records, along with accompanying financial transactions, suggest that the events were organized and planned in advance. Some of these records even include a surprising detail: flights booked for women allegedly involved in these nights, suggesting a coordinated effort to transport individuals for the purposes of sex. Additionally, the prosecution has been using text messages between Diddy, his associates, and other individuals to demonstrate a pattern of control and manipulation. Texts discussing logistics, payments, and requests for escorts or other services have been crucial in painting a picture of how Diddy's empire allegedly operated. These messages suggest a level of orchestration that could tie Diddy to the charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. As the defense scrambles to counter these points, the jury is being asked to consider the mounting evidence. The final moments of the trial will likely determine whether Diddy's carefully constructed empire will stand or fall. As the trial edges closer to its conclusion, the defense is ramping up its efforts to create reasonable doubt. One of their primary strategies is to downplay the significance of the digital evidence presented by the prosecution. They argue that the flight records, credit card statements, and text messages do not definitively prove that Diddy was involved in sex trafficking or racketeering. Instead, they suggest that these events, referred to as Wild King nights, were simply extravagant parties, a common part of the celebrity lifestyle. The defense is also focusing on the testimonies of individuals like Brendan Paul, attempting to portray him as an overworked assistant who got caught up in the chaos of Diddy's world, but wasn't involved in any illegal activities. By framing Paul's actions as nothing more than fulfilling his duties as an assistant, the defense is working to diminish the importance of his testimony. They argue that his purchases of drugs and involvement in setting up events were merely part of the high-pressure environment he was working in, and not evidence of criminal conspiracy. Furthermore, the defense is attacking the credibility of the prosecution's key witnesses. They argue that people like Cassie and others may have exaggerated or misunderstood their experiences, casting doubt on their claims of coercion or manipulation. The defense wants the jury to believe that what was seen as a pattern of control was, in fact, a toxic but consensual relationship between Diddy and those around him. With the prosecution's case nearly wrapped up, it's now up to the jury to weigh the evidence and decide whether Diddy's actions were criminal or just part of a complicated celebrity lifestyle. As the trial continues to unfold, the stakes couldn't be higher for Sean "Diddy" Combs. The prosecution has presented a mountain of evidence, from explosive audio tapes to flight records, painting a picture of a man orchestrating a complex web of control, manipulation, and illegal activity. Digital evidence, including text messages and financial transactions, ties Diddy directly to the events that are at the center of the case, especially the so-called Wild King nights. These records suggest a highly organized network designed to facilitate sex trafficking, painting a far more sinister picture of Diddy's empire. However, the defense is pulling no punches, arguing that much of the evidence presented doesn't prove anything criminal. They're working hard to convince the jury that the lavish parties were simply a part of Diddy's celebrity lifestyle and not the result of a coordinated sex trafficking operation. They are focusing on creating doubt around the testimonies of key witnesses like Brendan Paul and Cassie, arguing that their experiences may have been misunderstood or exaggerated. The defense wants the jury to believe that what might appear to be criminal behavior could simply be part of the chaotic world of a celebrity mogul. As the trial nears its end, it's clear that the final decision will come down to how the jury interprets the evidence and the testimonies. The questions remain: is this a case of a powerful mogul abusing his influence, or is it an overblown scandal? Stay tuned for more updates on this explosive trial. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for the latest developments.